Hello everyone. In this video you are going to know figures of speech from the poem Indian Weavers. The poem is written by Sarojini Naidu. In exam this question is asked for 2 marks. 1 mark for identifying and writing name of the figures of speech and another mark for writing appropriate explanation. Or you will get 2 marks for identifying poetic lines of the figures of speech given in the activity or finding another example of the same kind. Let's begin with first example. Weavers weaving at break of day. The figure of speech found in this line is alliteration. Alliteration means the use of same sound at the beginning of words in a given poetic line. The explanation for the same is the sound of letter W is repeated in the words weavers and weaving for the poetic effect. There is one more figure of speech used in the same line, weavers weaving at break of day. And the figure of speech is metaphor. A metaphor is the direct comparison of dissimilar things. And the explanation is, in the given line, at break of day, that is morning, is indirectly compared with beginning of life. Next example, why do you weave a garment so gay? The figure of speech is alliteration. Explanation, the sound of letter W and G are repeated for the poetic effect. As you find the sound W in the words Y and weave, and the sound G in the words garment and gay. Here in the same line we have one more figure of speech, that is interrogation. Interrogation means asking of question not for the sake of getting an answer but to put a point more effectively. Explanation for it is, a question is raised for emphasis by the poet. Next example, blue as the wing of a halcyon wild. The figure of speech found here is simile. Simile is a figure of speech that compares two unlike things using the words like or as. Explanation is, blue color used in the robe of a newborn child is compared to the blue color in the wings of a wild kingfisher or halcyon bird. Here in the same line we have one more figure of speech, that is alliteration. Explanation, the sound of the letter W is used twice in the words wing and wild, and this use is for the poetic effect. In the same poetic line, that is blue as the wing of a halcyon wild, we have one more figure of speech, that is inversion. Inversion means when in a sentence words are not arranged in a correct prose order. Explanation, in the given poetic line, the word order has been changed to create poetic effect. The proper word order should be blue as the wing of a wild halcyon. Next poetic line, we have the robes of a newborn child. The figure of speech found in this line is alliteration. Explanation for the same, the sound of the letter W is repeated in the words we and weave for the musical effect or poetic effect. Next example, weavers weaving at fall of night. The figure of speech is alliteration. As you know, alliteration means when repetition of the same sound at the beginning of 2 or more words. Explanation, the sound of the letter W is repeated in the words weavers and weaving for the poetic effect. Next example, why do you weave a garment so bright? The figure of speech is alliteration. Explanation, the sound of letter W is repeated in the words Y and weave for the poetic effect. One more figure of speech in the same line, that is interrogation. Interrogation means when a question is used instead of a statement for emphasis. Explanation. The question is raised by the poet Sarojini Naidu for the poetic effect. Next example. Like the plumes of a peacock, purple and green. The figure of speech found here is simile. As you know, a simile is a comparison of two things using the words like or as. Explanation. The marriage veils of a queen is directly compared with the purple and green colored plumes of a peacock. There is one more figure of speech in the same line. Like the plumes of a peacock, purple and green. And the figure of speech is alliteration. Explanation. The sound of a letter P is repeated in the words plumes, peacock and purple for the emphasis. Next example. We have the marriage veils of a queen. The figure of speech found here is alliteration. Explanation. The sound of a letter W is repeated in the words we and weave for the poetic effect. Next poetic line. Weavers weaving solemn and still. The figure of speech is alliteration. Explanation. The sound of letter W and S are repeated for the poetic effect. W in weavers and weaving and S in the word solemn and still. One more figure of speech in the same line, that is paradox. A paradox is a figure of speech in which a statement appears to contradict itself. Explanation. The line is meaningless, absurd, as one cannot carry the work of weaving being still. One more figure of speech in the same line, that is tautology. Tautology is a figure of speech where different words are used to express same meaning. Explanation. The words solemn and still are having the same meaning. So it is tautology. Next example. What do you weave in the moonlight chill? The figure of speech is interrogation. Interrogation means when a question is used for poetic emphasis. Explanation. The poet has raised a question for poetic emphasis. One more figure of speech in the same line, that is inversion. Inversion means when order of the words in a sentence is jumbled for the poetic effect. Explanation. The word order has been changed and the correct word order is what do you weave in the chill moonlight? One more figure of speech is found in the same line, that is alliteration. Explanation. The sound of letter W is repeated in the words what and weave for the poetic effect. One more figure of speech is used in the same line, that is metaphor. Metaphor is a figure of speech in which there is indirect comparison between two dissimilar things. The explanation for the same. In this given line, death, old age is indirectly compared with moonlight. Next example. White as a feather and white as a cloud. The figure of speech is repetition. Repetition is a figure of speech where a word or group of words is repeated for the poetic effect. The word white and as are repeated to create poetic effect. So it is repetition. One more figure of speech is found in the same line, that is simile. Simile is a figure of speech that compares two unlike things using the words like or as. Explanation. The garment is directly compared with a feather or a cloud. Next poetic line. We weave a dead man's funeral shroud. The figure of speech is alliteration. Explanation. The sound of letter W is repeated for emphasis. So this is all about figures of speech used in the poem Indian Weavers by Sarojini Naidu. Thank you.